Okay, hello everyone. I thought today, well, I've been working on a bit of a new ship for a while, and it's been using a grav drive. Now, I used to use a script, I think it was called grav, yeah, just a grav drive manager, something like that. It was just a script. But these days, we've got all these fancy timer blocks and event controllers specifically, which can be used with our gravity generators to create a completely vanilla and scriptless grav drive. So I was looking online on YouTube or around the like Space Engineers Reddit if anyone has a tutorial for a modern grav drive, like a simple grav drive that doesn't use a script, that it just uses event controllers and timer blocks. I don't think I saw any tutorial for it, so I thought I might actually just make one now that I have fully developed a ship that uses all these timer blocks and event controllers here for a vanilla scriptless grav drive. So there's quite a lot of blocks here. I think most people would be used to the usual grav generators and mass blocks. So artificial mass blocks and grav generators, when the artificial mass block is on and the grav generator has a direction, it will pull the center of mass of your ship in whatever direction is of the gravity generator is. So for instance, if I was to turn this gravity generator on with its default maximum velocity, it would basically turn gravity into this direction and my ship would begin falling like this when I turn my mass blocks on. Now what's interesting here is these gravity generators actually have zero velocity, which is relevant for our timer blocks. So a cool thing that you can do with gravity generators is they can either go in that direction or that direction. So they can either be positive or negative. If you want to be really PCU efficient, what you want is two or more gravity drives, or like at least the gravity drives for one direction, can flip their acceleration and be used for going in the other direction. So for instance, if I was to move my ship to the right, we would need our gravity to have a negative acceleration on this one and a positive acceleration on this one on the left. In essence, instead of just having one at 10 meters per second, we would have two grav generators at 10 meters per second. So we would effectively double our thrust, which is really important when you want to minimize the PCU. So what I was doing is I was trying to build a PCU efficient ship that would be highly mobile and designed for PvP environments, possibly on Keen servers or something like that. They have like a limit on those servers of about 20,000 PCU, and I was using the Factorum warship as a model, which has a PCU of about 11,000. So it's about half of your server's PCU, or at least half of your Keen server PCU. One issue I encountered, so I was basically aiming on creating a ship around that 10,000 PCU sort of range. You can do that. It's perfectly fine to make something like that. However, if you want to have the amount of like grav generators and mass blocks that I did, it ended up being about 1,000 PCU for just the grav gens for each direction. So if you have a look in here, one artificial mass block, and this is the build info mod, that's giving me these extra little bits and bobs on the side here, above the like normal tooltip for it, where you can see all the like integrity and kilograms, whatever. That's not super relevant for right now. What we're looking at is the PCU. So under the block's name, we've got PCU 25. So artificial mass blocks are worth 25 PCU. However, gravity generators are worth nearly 200 PCU. The ship that I designed had 4 gravity generators on each side. So just on their own, with nothing else, these gravity generators, having 4 of them, is already about 1,000 PCU. So no matter what ship I was going to do, or however I was going to design it, I would basically need 6,000 PCU on top of whatever I was going to build. So I've managed to make a ship that's 16,000 PCU, so if you cut out the grav generator, the grav drive, it's basically a 10,000 PCU ship, so kind of works. Its thrust is absolutely deplorable without the grav drive, so I would not recommend using in that manner. I will just pop it in so we can have a look. This is my new ART flash thrust. ART-091, this is the ship that I have designed with our grav drive in mind. I'm going to bring it a little ways away from here just so that there's no overlap on the grav generators. So here we go, here's our ship. On board, we'll have a look at what we've got. Okay, so we've got grav generators in every direction. It's a little wonky at the moment because I've just spawned it in and I will need to reset the gravity generators. So I've currently got a bunch of event controllers. The way that it works is my event controllers are set to change the gravity of our gravity generators whenever they detect a thruster input. So what I've just done there is WASD space and control, or C in my case, which is my down. That has reset all of my generators to 0 meters per second in all directions, and I'll get to that in just a second. So if I want to do our setup, let me show you what we've got. So I have specifically gone and built a kit here because this grav generator setup, this grav drive setup, takes a lot of time. And I thought it might be a bit simpler if I have just a kit that you can sort of spawn in or project and then cut off the pieces of the sprues that you need or that you want, or in this case use basically all of them. What we need at the very minimum for any kind of event controller grav drive is at least one thruster in every direction, a cockpit for determining where the front left, whatever your orientation of your ship is, gyroscopes so you can point it around, one or more gyroscopes. An additional gyroscope so that you can have an override is not a bad idea, so I might actually just put one on here in case we need it in the future. This grid is relatively balanced, but as you can see, its center of mass is a little bit behind where you would expect the center. Where you want your center of mass, so if you go into your information panel here, you can have show center of mass. That will show you the center of mass of all of your grids. I think there's it needs like a 10 or so blocks to minimum to show the center of mass, otherwise you're just gonna get random crap. Oh no, okay, yeah, one block and you can still see it. Although, is that just power? Okay, that's any block, so it might be useful to turn that off if you don't want to see a whole bunch of markers on your screen for where your center of mass is. It's really important here. So your center of mass on your ship needs to be in the middle of where your mass blocks are. Nothing else is important. The orientation or where you place your grav generators is not important. What is important is the mass blocks. So if I wanted to make this a little bit more balanced, you can see it's slightly behind the center of here, so I could potentially put a little bit more armor on the front. That might do the trick. How's that looking? Okay, it basically made no difference, so what we're going to do instead is we're going to put in heavy armor. So I'm going to swap to heavy armor blocks because they have quite a good... They're a PCU efficient way of making ballast on your ship effectively. So yeah, way too much. They're 1 PCU each. You can do something like gyroscopes. Gyroscopes are really heavy. If you have a look here, 12,000 kilograms, or nearly 13,000 kilograms compared to one heavy armor block's 3.3 thousand kilograms. The only difference is this is worth 1 PCU where a gyroscope is 50. So I could have 50 of these blocks for every 1 gyroscope. It's not quite right, so maybe I'll just put something like this on the back. Okay, that's looking reasonably centered. We could just put a bit more regular armor, I think, to bring that back just a smidge. Maybe a bit more, and it needs to come down just a teeny bit. Now, this isn't actually super necessary because you can just have an overridden gyroscope, except an issue that you'll encounter with overriding gyroscopes is they will actually sort of hamper your ability to use your Q and E like rotation controls. That's looking about right. Maybe one more. How is that? That's looking pretty good. Okay, so we shouldn't get much yawing and rolling when we activate our grav drive. So, what we need here, we've got our mass blocks, our gravity generators, we've put our center of mass, all good. We've got our control seat and a thruster in every direction. Okay, so where do the event controls and timer blocks come in? And why do we have 2 timer blocks and 1 event controller on each direction? So, at a very bare minimum, what you're going to need is for your event controllers. So if I go in here and I'll set this up with you. One cool thing about this kit is I have set up the timer blocks and they'll all be done for you. But the one thing you're going to have to do manually is the thrusters. Why are these showing as a separate grids thrusters? That is very odd. But I'll just try it and hope for the best. I'm assuming they don't... Yeah, they're not displaying as a separate grid in here, so okay, whatever. Event controllers. So, the way this is going to work is we're going to have our forward event controller. We're going to search for thrust equal to, doesn't really matter, any percent that's greater than 0, so between like 1 and 100%. It's basically fine. We're going to pick our thrusters, so it's an important thing here. When you're making your ship with your thrusters, you're going to want to name their direction. So it's the direction that they're going to push your ship in when it's turned on and thrusting. You're not going to be able to see that without a cockpit. So if I have a look in here, thrusters, we've got these directions in brackets. You're not going to see these unless you're in a cockpit that's giving your grid an orientation. So if I hop out, go into a thruster, or go into our blocks here and have a look. So I have named them specifically, which is why they're showing up here, which is going to be important for our event controllers. But once you've got them named, you can come into, well, once you're ready to name them, go into your control seat, you bring up your thrusters, you can see what their direction is based on what's in the brackets, and then just name them in that way, because you can't see whatever's in the brackets when you go into your event controller. So for instance, let's start with back, it's just the one at the top. We're going to want, see, you don't see the direction in brackets even though I'm currently in a control seat. So we're going to look for the back thruster, and it's important to note where your direction is going to be going. So this thruster is on the front, so you would logically think this is my forward thruster or my front thruster, but it's actually going to push me backwards. So this is my back thruster, this is my forward thruster. It's pretty intuitive that way, except left and right is really unintuitive because, yeah, this is my right thruster, except it's on the left. My left thruster, except it's on the right, is basically the opposite of what you would think. So we come in here, we'll go into our event controller and pray for the best. So why are these in orange? I have no idea. Let's just go with it. Back, we're going to add this block. Okay, so what's it going to do? It is going to choose our actions, and back we're going to have 2 timer blocks. So what we want is our timer block for back. We have 2 of them. So back engage, back reset. So this is going to trigger when it detects the thrust. This is going to trigger when it no longer detects the thrust. So we're going to have engage, trigger now, engage, reset, and trigger now. So the way that this is going to work is if I go into the back timer block and we have a look at engage, and this is why I wanted to develop this kit basically, because we've got so many pages of all of these different inputs. If you have a look at my toolbar info with, I think this is from build info, the mod build info, you basically be able to see what all these toolbars are. And as you can see, I'm flicking through them, so it's on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to go back to 1. So basically, our engage timer block is going to trigger once, and it's going to set our back gravity drive and our forward gravity drive plus or minus 10 meters per second in either direction. So it's going to set our back gravity drives all the way to negative, and it's going to set our forward gravity drives all the way to positive. So we're going to basically have 8, well in this case we're going to have 2 meters per second of gravity yeah, it's 2G. Okay, it's 2G in whatever direction that we want at any one time. I had 4 grav drives on my other ship, which is why I was going for 8, so neither direction. It's fine. Either way, as you can see, there's a lot of inputs here. It's 10 pages, 2 inputs each, and you do that for an engage and reset for every single direction. So that's like what? 12 timer blocks worth, 10, so it's like 120 different inputs that you have to put in, something like that. Is my math correct on there? Someone correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that sounds about right. Either way, it took me like a good hour and a half, 2 hours to set up, so hopefully this kit will be useful. As you can see on here, the only thing I've needed to do with this kit is set up the event controller. Luckily, the timer blocks will work perfectly fine. You just need to set the event controllers up. So we've got our reset timer ready to go, set up action. None of these are all buggered. And the way that this works here is I have groups for the grav drives, so that if you have your own ship that you're building, you can have any number of grav drives in whatever direction. You just need to make sure that before you use the pieces of this kit, you go in, name the direction of your gravity drives, and then just put them all in a group for each direction. And then these timer blocks will look for these groups, and they have to be named this exactly. So back grav drives, it won't work if you name them something other than that. It has to be exactly that name. This kit is automatically set up for it, so you could just copy and paste these blocks in onto your own ship, but I think that might break the group, so it's just important. So core step here, make sure you've got the groups. So if we go back into our event controllers, remember I only did the back, so now I've got to go in and do the rest. So down, select, we'll add our blocks, so our down thruster, add, select action, down, we want engage, trigger, reset, trigger, forward, pick our forward thruster, add. It's going to search for the thrust. Normally this comes in by default on, I think it's cargo filled percentage, but luckily for you, these event controllers have kept their default setup from when I set them up, so it's searching for thrust equal to or greater than 5%. So we've got our forward thruster in here, select action, we want our forward engage reset, and then we've got our left, pick our left thruster. An interesting thing that you can note with these available blocks is you can select any number of thrusters on your grid to be the thing that it registers. No, this is left, right? So you can set any number. So basically, if you go in, you're in your control seat, and you're renaming your thrusters. If you go and highlight all of them, make sure that they're all named in the same direction for whatever direction they are. And then you can put any number of them in here. So I could have a whole bunch of hydrogen thrusters, a whole bunch of ion thrusters, a whole bunch of atmospheric thrusters even. They'll all work. It's important. It's good to have some redundancy then, because it's not a and, so any one of the thrusters that fire on here will cause this to trigger, and it doesn't overlap or anything like that, so you don't need to worry about it being all messy. It's just so that there's some redundancy, which is good to have. In case, well, if you're taking this into a combat scenario, you want some redundancy. Basically, if you think about it, you could have deep in the core of your ship, you could have some nestled ion thrusters, which are going to act as your controls. But if they get sniped by a railgun shot, you're going to lose the ability to control your gravity drive in whatever direction has just been sniped off. So it's important to just name all your groups, put them all in like that. And then we've got our up. That's the last one we've got to do. Select action, up, engage reset. And that should be basically everything. So we should be good to go. So all we want to do now is create a group with our mass blocks, however many there are. It's a bit hard to tell what's the best way to use your PCU by having like more mass blocks or more grav generators, it seems to be like it's good to have a bit of a balance between the two, so not going too overboard on mass blocks and not going too underboard on gravity drives. So here we go, our mass blocks are on. Actually, I'll turn it off first so we can see. So if I push forward, we can see our artificial gravity changes to match when our thrusters are firing. So as we can see, looks like it's working pretty much perfectly, and all their like different thrusts can compound, so you can get some weird stuff like that going. And be careful to set some like event controllers up that when you hop out of your cockpit, like turn off all your gravity generators or whatever, or your mass blocks, otherwise you're going to get thrown all over your ship at like 8 Gs, which is not a pleasant experience. You'll probably die instantly. So here we go, our mass blocks are on and our gravity drive is working. However, we're getting a bit of kick here, and that's probably just because, yeah, we're maxing out on power in a few places, so let's just add some more batteries. This is probably going to kill my central mass even more, so we're not going to worry about that. What we can just do here is, yeah, okay, so we're just going to go in, pick a gyroscope, and override the controls. This is just a flaw of it being a small grid, but as you can see here, now we've got override, we're able to keep things nice and stable. The only issue is, right now I'm pushing like Q and E, your rolling is kind of terrible, but that's basically the only downside to it. It kind of screws with your mouse controls a little bit as well to have an override, so it's really important to have a good mass balance. But as you can see, I mean, I'm pretty mobile. It's quite similar to a jetpack, basically. And this scales up very nicely, so there you go. Nice, easy kit for you to use. There will be a link in the description of this video to this kit, and this video basically has just gone through and shown you how to copy and paste it onto your own ship. One thing you can do is basically just cut off where these red sprues are, copy the blocks, paste them onto your grid, and then do the setup of the event controllers, and you should be good to go.